How's everyone today? Happy New Year. I can't believe it's 2025 already. So yeah, time goes by very quickly. So anyhow, it's good to be back. I just got back on Saturday night from Pennsylvania, and I spent over 2 weeks there. I think I told most of you last time that I was going back to America to spend some time with my family, my mother and my sister and some other friends there. But yeah, it was nice. It's I think I've shared with you before, in Taiwan, often I feel that Christmas kind of creeps up on us, and then suddenly it's here and then it's gone. And sometimes I don't really feel like I'm in the Christmas spirit, probably because the weather is not very traditional Christmas feeling. But in America, it's easier to get into the Christmas spirit because, of course, everyone is celebrating Christmas. One thing that people like to do is they like to drive around and look at people's Christmas lights. So people like to decorate the fronts of their homes and their trees and their yard with Christmas lights or decorations. And some people, they don't do anything, or they just put up a few lights. But some people really go crazy, and they have all kinds of lights and things. And in fact, sometimes it's a little bit extreme. But it's fun to see that. And then, of course, there's everywhere you go, there's Christmas music. A little bit like here in Taiwan during Nongli Guonian. I was at the supermarket a couple days ago, and I noticed they're already playing Nongli Guonian, Lunar New Year music on the sound system. And I thought, oh, here it comes. So, but the other thing I thought was, when I consider myself a little bit fortunate in that Pennsylvania does not normally get a white Christmas. It's actually rather unusual. But about 3 days after I arrived there, we looked out the window one day and it was snowing. So it snowed quite a bit. We got about 1 inch of snow, 1 or 2 inches of snow, and it stayed for about 48 hours and then it melted. But at least I got a little bit of snow. And then it was funny because the day I left to come back to Taiwan, that day it was okay when I left, when I flew out, but that evening it snowed again. So I missed a pretty heavy snow. But whenever there's snow, it's kind of what we say. We have an expression in English. We say that kind of, snow and many other things. I would say that it is a mixed blessing, okay? When you say something is a mixed blessing, it means that there may be some good things about it, but there may be some not so good things about it, maybe some bad things. So snow can be a mixed blessing. Of course, it's very beautiful when it comes down. But my worry, of course, if there's too much snow, is it might affect my travel plans. So if there's too much snow, they could cancel flights. There could be delays. And right now in America, there's a very heavy snow taking place across the United States. And so, if you're flying from point A to point B to point C, like I am, I'm always worried that they're going to cancel flights or something else is going to happen. So snow is fun, but too much snow is sometimes not so good. So anyhow, I was happy to get a white Christmas. Well, it wasn't actually a white Christmas. It was a pre-white Christmas, a little bit before Christmas. So anyhow, that was fun. And I had a good time there. Okay. So anyhow, I thought today we would start with an article. It was a front page article. Of course, one of the big things that's coming up soon is today is 9号, right? So in about 11 days, exactly 11 days, the United States will officially have a brand new, well, actually not brand new, but kind of a return of a president, Donald Trump. He will officially become the president. And it's very interesting because I've noticed that Donald Trump is already acting like the president. I think part of it is because Biden is not really doing much. Biden, what we call a president like Biden right now, we call him what? Lame duck, right? That's a very common expression. So Donald Trump he's been the president. We say Donald Trump is the president-elect, okay? Okay, and so president-elect, oops, that's an E. Yeah. It means that he's been voted as president, but he's not the president yet. So right now he is the president. That's an ELECT, elect. And so that makes Joe Biden a lame duck. Now, what does lame mean? Yeah, lame means, if you have a problem with your leg and you can't walk properly, you say I'm lame in my right leg because I was injured. Duck, of course, so a lame duck. I don't know where this expression started, and I don't know why they say duck, but lame duck president is the expression that we normally use. So now I will say the word lame as a popular word when I was in high school. It also meant something that was stupid or silly or dumb, right? So if someone told you a joke and the joke was really stupid, the joke was just dumb, we would say, oh, that's really lame, okay? So when I was in high school, we used that word a lot just to say, oh, that's just silly, that's dumb, that's stupid. We say, oh, that's really lame, okay? So that's another way that, I don't hear that word used as much anymore today, but that was another way that we use the word. So anyhow, Joe Biden is a lame duck president. He hasn't really been saying or doing much recently, and Donald Trump is the president-elect, so he's been talking a lot and acting like the president. So why don't we say these expressions or words together? Mixed blessing. Mixed blessing. Lame duck. Lame duck. President-elect. President-elect. Right. So again, this expression mixed blessing is very common. For example, I could say, when I went back to America, I enjoyed lots of great food. My mother cooked at home, and we went to some wonderful restaurants. It was great, but that's a mixed blessing, right? Because you're enjoying all this good food, but maybe you put on some weight, or maybe it's not completely healthy for you. It's very funny. One of the restaurants that I go to usually when I go back is in Pennsylvania, near my parents' home there. There is America's largest buffet restaurant. Kind of like, I guess you would say 自助餐, right? Or not, yeah, 吃到饱. Okay, maybe 吃到饱 is a better way of saying it. Yeah, we say buffet. So it's America's biggest buffet restaurant. And the restaurant, the buffet is, total, it's in different sections, but I think the total length is something like, I don't know, 80公尺 or 100公尺, something like that. But it's I went there and of course when we say buffet, right? Buffet is a 吃到饱. Now remember, this is a French word, so we don't pronounce the T, right? So it's buffet. Okay, why don't we say it together? Buffet. Buffet. Right. So I go to this buffet restaurant every time, and it's great food. I don't eat breakfast. I don't eat dinner. We go there for lunch. And I always eat and eat and eat until I almost feel sick. And especially the desserts. They have like 20 different kinds of pie. And I love pie, and Taiwan doesn't really have pie. So I go there. It's wonderful. It's amazing. But it's a mixed blessing, right? Because afterwards I feel so full. I probably ate too much. I probably, so anyhow, we say that's a mixed blessing. Okay. So going back to this article, I just want to say, yes. Yeah, all you can eat or use buffet. In Taiwan, we have another kind of, I said earlier, 自助餐. That restaurant, yeah, I would call that a cafeteria restaurant. Now, a cafeteria is a little bit like a buffet because you go through and you grab food, but it's not all you can eat, right? So why don't we say together, cafeteria. Cafeteria. And then once again, buffet. Buffet. Right. So yeah, very popular kind of restaurant. So, yeah. Yeah. In fact, it's very interesting. They use that word at the restaurant I went to in Pennsylvania. They use the word smorgasbord, which is a very unusual, it's kind of an old word. It's Swedish, yeah. And it's a word that some people know and some people don't even know. It's a very unusual word. But if you go to older buffet restaurants in America, sometimes they use that word smorgasbord, which is kind of a weird word, but it's Swedish, 瑞典. Yeah. In fact, it was very funny when we were driving to this restaurant a week ago. We looked up that word on our phones because we were like, what's the origin of this word? Where does it come from? And so, yeah, I'm not even going to write it because it's hard to pronounce. It's not a word that we use every day. Buffet is probably easier. So, yeah, the buffet. Okay. So I want to say something before we read this article. And it's something I've noticed about Donald Trump. And I hope it's something that you and other people are starting to notice about Donald Trump is he likes to say things that he doesn't actually mean, okay? And I think Donald Trump's purpose is very clear. He likes to put things out there to get a reaction, okay? And so he says things to see what happens, what's the reaction. And it's a kind of a way of showing people what he's thinking sometimes, but I think his purpose is to really kind of get a reaction out of other people and see what happens. He does that with many different things. And it's his way of often communicating something or pressuring other people to do what he wants without saying he wants that, right? So he'll say something and it puts pressure on somebody, and then they react, okay? They say, oh, well, no, we want to do this, or no, and so I think it's his strategy. And it's very funny because, I don't know, I think the media, when they report on Donald Trump, either they're not too smart and they don't understand that, or I think they don't like Donald Trump, and so they actually just say whatever he says literally, So Donald Trump says this, Donald Trump wants to do this, Donald Trump, and they act like they don't really understand this is his strategy, the way he does things. So I think you have to understand that as we read this article, because Donald Trump said a whole bunch of things. But honestly, I think it's his strategy. He says stuff and then he tries to get a reaction out of people to see what they're going to do. And it's very clear this is his strategy. When he wants something, he says something and then he gets a reaction. So let's keep that in mind, because he says some very interesting things in this article. Maybe you've already heard about this. So it says here, Trump threatens Canada, Panama, and Greenland. Okay, Bloomberg is the news agency. So, we're Canada, of course. Panama, used to be a friend of Taiwan's a long time ago. It's very famous for the Panama Canal. Okay. And then Greenland is, what is that? What is it? Greenland. Yeah, Greenland, which belongs to Denmark. Okay. Okay, so it says here, Trump called for absorbing Canada, declined to rule out using military force to seize the Panama Canal, and Greenland demanded NATO allies spend 5% of GDP on defense, and vowed all hell would break loose in the Middle East if Hamas does not release Israeli hostages before he takes office. Okay, so he's thrown out a whole bunch of stuff here. So first of all, absorbing Canada. What does absorb mean? It's a good word. It's very common. What? Okay, take back, but it kind of means to absorb means to kind of take into, okay? I'll give you a great example. If you spill water on the floor, okay, and you want to clean it up, what do? You take a towel or a paper napkin and you put it on top of the water, and what does the towel do? It absorbs the water, okay? So sometimes when you want to buy a towel, you want to make sure that towel or that is very absorbent. It means it can absorb lots of water. It's good for cleaning up liquid, okay? So something that is very absorbent means it takes in a lot of whatever, usually liquid water, okay? So absorb means to kind of take into something, okay? So when you absorb, let's say you say this company is going to absorb that company. It means it's going to take over or take in. That company will become part of this first company. So when we say kind of, but absorb has a slightly broader idea. I mean, obviously we could say a merger, but a merger could be two companies joining together equally to become a new one. But absorb is kind of like you become part of us, okay? Obviously, we know that China would love to absorb Taiwan, right? They want to make Taiwan just part of China. It's not like China and Taiwan, or China looks at Taiwan and says, oh, we're equals and we're going to become something new. We're going to merge into something new. They say, no, we want to absorb you, okay? So absorb has a very physical meaning, like I said, to absorb water, okay? Or it could be like this, for one country to absorb another country. So it's a very good word. It's actually very common. It's a word we use all the time. So why don't we first say this word, absorb. Absorb. Absorbing. Absorbing. And then if we want to turn this into a 形容词, we say ENT, absorbent. Absorbent. Right, so you can say that towel is very absorbent. I use it to clean up water, okay? So Trump called for absorbing Canada, declined to rule out using military force. Now, when we say decline to rule out. Okay, decline means what? Refuse, right? So decline to rule out. And if you rule something out, what does that mean? Right. If you say, I ruled out doing this, it means I said there's no, that means I give up, or I said there's no way I will do that. Okay. So if you rule something out, it means you will not do it. You say there's no way, you reject it. Okay. So for example, if you're having a discussion with your friend and you say, would you consider moving to Taipei? And you say, no, I completely rule that out. Or he ruled out moving to Taipei. It means that he said there's no way. He rejected. There's no possibility of moving to Taipei. I ruled that out. Okay? So it says here he declined to rule out, means that it's kind of like a double negative, means he did not rule out, means it's a possibility. Okay? If you decline to rule something out, means you say what you're saying is that it is a possibility. Okay? Remember, if you say rule out, that means it's impossible. But if you decline to rule out, it means it is still possible. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay. So he declined to rule out using military force to seize. Okay, seize, of course, means to grab. Okay, to seize the Panama Canal and Greenland. Demanded NATO allies, okay, allies, of course, means friends, spend 5% of GDP on defense, and vowed all hell would break loose in the Middle East. Okay, now, this is an expression quite common. If someone says all hell is going to break loose, what does that mean? Well, it means something big. It's it's going to be a big disaster. Something big is going to happen, or usually something with violence or force, right? If you say, or it doesn't have to be violence, actually. You could say when he announced that he was resigning from his company, all hell broke loose. It means that there was confusion and chaos, luan, and all that. Okay, so it's kind of like creating a big luan or chaos. Okay. Mm-hmm. Apocalypse, yeah, but it doesn't have to be an apocalypse, right? It could be more like like you could say, if you told your friends that if you were the let's say you were the CEO of a company and you announced one day that you're leaving, and you all hell broke loose. It doesn't mean they were fighting. It means that everyone was shocked and they were in confusion and there was a lot of chaos. But it doesn't mean people were actually fighting with each other. So this is just an expression that means that it creates some big reaction, usually kind of a chaotic reaction. Okay, so why don't we say together, all hell would break loose. 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 Okay, and I think this word vow is just another word for to promise, to swear, to pledge. There's many words that are similar to this. Okay, that all hell would break loose in the Middle East, in Zhongdong, if Hamas does not release Israeli hostages before he takes office. And we've talked many times before. What is a hostage? Yeah, if you grab somebody and then you ask for money or you ask for something else before you let them go, they are a hostage. So why don't we say that word as well? Hostage. Hostage. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of stuff here, and again, it's funny because I think the media loves this because it makes Donald Trump look a little bit crazy, right? But I think, again, he likes to put out this stuff and see what kind of reaction he gets. Okay? So let's see here. I think we looked at all the different words. So let's read this together. Trump called for absorbing Canada. Let's say it again. Absorbing Canada. Declined to rule out using military force to seize the Panama Canal and Greenland. Demanded NATO allies spend 5% of GDP on defense, and vowed all hell would break loose in the Middle East if Hamas does not release Israeli hostages. One more time, Israeli hostages before he takes office. Okay, of course, takes office means becomes president. Okay, a small note here, canal, is usually, when we say a canal, it usually means it's man-made. It's not natural, okay? It's very interesting, Taichung has two waterways. One is Lüchuan and Liuchuan, right? And I whenever I write about these, I never write river. I never say river. I always write canal, because it's not a natural river or stream or anything like that. It's something that was man-made. We say man-made, or I guess we could say constructed. I guess nowadays we don't like to use the word man, right? So we use the word, made by, artificial. Maybe we could say that, artificial. Okay, so why don't we say that word together? Canal. Canal. Okay. Okay, it says here, he also promised to rename the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. What a beautiful name, and it's appropriate, Trump told a news conference on Tuesday at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Do you know what an estate is? Yeah, it has two different meanings. There's a physical meaning, which is a piece of property. Okay, you could say he has a big estate in Pingdong or something. But yeah, when I think of estate, when you use that word estate, it kind of seems like, to me, it sounds like a big piece of land, and it usually, maybe it's valuable, it's worth a lot. But estate can also be something like, it's almost like something that your inheritance, something that someone gives you when your parents or pass away, or they give it to you as your inheritance. You say they left a very large estate. It's just almost like this idea of property and money and other things that you get. But here, of course, it's talking about he has a big piece of property in Florida called Mar-a-Lago. It's very famous now. Okay, so it says here he wants to change the name to Gulf of America. Yeah, which is a very wealthy, rich area. Yeah, so it's kind of like his own personal capital down there in Florida. So yeah. So anyhow, he says he renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, which is kind of funny. Okay, so he says it's a beautiful name and it's appropriate. Okay, if something is appropriate, does everybody know that word? Okay, it's acceptable. It's the right thing to do. We can say, what is the appropriate title for your teacher or your boss? What title should you use that is the right way to talk to him? Or you can say that is the appropriate thing to do, right? Like if you go to somebody's house and they give you a nice gift, it's appropriate to thank them, right? Or to write a card, a thank you note, and say thank you. Okay, that's appropriate. Now, if it's not appropriate, what do we say? We say it is, what's the word? If it's not appropriate, inappropriate. So we just add the word in, inappropriate means it's not appropriate. One word, inappropriate. So let's say this together. Appropriate. Appropriate. Inappropriate. Inappropriate. Right. It's very interesting. I told you I do a lot of Kwawa and Hua Shun and cross-cultural training, right? And often we what's appropriate in one culture is inappropriate in a different culture, right? And we always have to be careful about how we act or behave when we go to other places, because maybe we think, no problem, but in another place it might be inappropriate. Okay, so let's read this together. He also promised to rename the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. What a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. Appropriate. Trump told a news conference on Tuesday at his Mar-a-Lago estate. Let's say it again. Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. Okay, so you all know what a golf is? A golf? Well, no, that's different golf. So golf, yeah. So if you play golf, that's with an O, okay? But what is this golf? It's a little bit like a, yeah. So, you know, we say a bay is like one, right? Okay. A golf is much bigger, but similar. Usually it kind of goes in and comes out. Trying to think what, if there's a golf around here. Yeah. I know we always talk about Bosowan, right? Yeah, that's a bay. You know, there's a lot of similarities between a golf and a bay. So a bay, of course, is B-A-Y, okay? Like the word Taiwan, right, means terraced bay, right? It means there's a bay with, I don't know, it's, yeah. So I think that's what it means. Okay, so let's say it one more time. Golf. Golf. Bay. Bay. Yeah, usually a bay is smaller, but a golf is really big. Okay, yeah. And it's pronounced the same way as golf. Golfacho, you know. Yeah, but golf is spelled with an O. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's keep going here. It says, he did not explain how any of these improbable pledges would come to pass beyond threatening to impose tariffs on nations, including Denmark, that do not cooperate. Okay, so first of all, what does the word improbable mean? I'll give you a clue. If you look at the word here, the smaller word, probable, what does probable mean? Possible, yeah, or with a strong possibility, right? For example, you know, let's say you wake up and it's very cloudy and the sky is dark, and you look at the weather and you say, it is probable that it's going to rain today, right? It means it's strongly possible that it's going to rain, or it probably will rain, probably will rain, okay? But improbable, of course, is the opposite. So if we say it's improbable that it's going to rain today, it means it's probably not going to rain today, okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay, so it says he doesn't explain how any of these improbable pledges, now of course a pledge is like a promise, right? A pledge, okay, I pledge that I will do this, I promise I will do this. So any of these pledges or promises are very unlikely. They're probably not going to happen. So he didn't explain how these would come to pass. Now, when we say come to pass, this is a very common expression. If something comes to pass, it simply means it happens. It becomes reality, right? You can say, it came to pass that, you know, he built a new house, or he did this, or he did that. It means it happened. It actually happened. So why don't we say these words together? Probable. Probable. Improbable. Improbable. Come to pass. Come to pass. Okay, so he didn't explain how this is going to happen besides, we say besides or beyond, threatening to impose tariffs on nations. Now, this is a word that Donald Trump loves, tariffs. What is a tariff? It's a tax, right? But it's a specific kind of tax on what? On imported items, right? I think I've told you before. I was very surprised to find out that when my American and even my UK friends come to Taiwan, if some of them, not all of them, of course, but many of them really love to buy Scotch whiskey in Taiwan, Sugalan whiskey. Why? Because Scotch whiskey, shockingly, is cheaper in Taiwan, much cheaper in Taiwan than it is in the United States. And it's cheaper in Taiwan than it is in the UK. Can you believe that? Because the UK and the US all have tariffs and taxes. Now, of course, I know Scotch is made in the UK, but they have their own other taxes that they put on these things. So even someone from Scotland can come to Taiwan and buy their whiskey here cheaper than they would buy it in Scotland. Okay, so it's very funny. I was shocked to hear that. So anyhow, why don't we say a word together? Tariff. Tariff. Okay, so of course when we impose, it means we put on someone. Like we can impose a law, we can impose a guideline, we can impose a tax. Okay, so there, he is threatening to impose tariffs on nations, including Denmark, that do not cooperate. Okay, so this is his way of talking. Okay, so let's read this together. He did not explain how any of these improbable pledges would come to pass. Beyond threatening to impose tariffs on nations. Okay, let's say it again. Impose tariffs on nations, including Denmark, that do not cooperate. Okay. Yeah. I think he enjoys being in. Mm-hmm. No, I think he's actually quite clever in that he knows how to get reactions out of people. Keep in mind he's a businessman, right? So instead of saying I want this or I want you to do that, he'll say something to get a reaction out of people. So I think whenever you hear Donald Trump make these kind of statements, it doesn't matter what he's talking about. He could be talking about this. He could be talking about Taiwan. He could be talking about China. He'll say something in order to get a reaction out of them. And I think it's pretty obvious that's his strategy. So anyhow, I think again, look at, I always say this, look at his first 4 years in office, the previous 4 years, and just use that as kind of a standard for this. Okay. So yeah, it's interesting. It's not, of course, not many people don't like this kind of style, but some might say it's effective. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's not in everything, of course, but I was thinking this morning, I thought, that would be very interesting if we got Greenland. Greenland is a very large territory. There's not many people there. But it's very strategic. It's very important location. Denmark is a very small country. It wouldn't be the first time that we bought a territory from somebody, right? We bought Alaska from Russia. We've taken over other territories from other countries. What? Yeah, we purchased the whole center part of the United States from France, right? We bought that. So yeah, I thought, maybe Greenland could become the 51st state of America. I don't know. It probably doesn't qualify because to become a state, you have to have a minimum number of people, according to the 美国宪法, to be considered for statehood. It's very interesting because America has another small island in the Caribbean called Puerto Rico, right? And Puerto Rico, for a very long time, they could become a state if they wanted to, but they decided to remain a territory. But it's always a possibility that Puerto Rico could become a state, a 51st state of the United States, because I think they qualify. I think they have enough people. So anyhow, yeah. What? Referendum, yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting, the whole situation with Puerto Rico. Of course, the Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens. No, I don't want Canada. Canada can stay where they are. Yeah. But it was very interesting. About 10 years ago, there was a lot of debate within Canada because there was a real split. Remember, I don't know if you remember Quebec. Quebec actually they wanted to become independent. They wanted to leave Canada. And so, because they're a French-speaking province of Canada. And at that time, I remember hearing there was some discussion within Canada that said if Quebec left Canada and became a 独立国家, they said all the provinces to the east of Quebec might consider joining 美国, because they would be then separated from the rest of Canada if Quebec became 独立, and then these other provinces like Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and all those places, would they want to join the United States? So I don't know, you hear these things. Of course, Quebec is still part of Canada, but it's always interesting to consider, to think about. It's not like sometimes we think history has stopped and nothing new will happen, but 谁知道, there could be something else, who knows. But yeah. So anyhow, it says here, however, the rambling session erased any doubt that Trump plans to take foreign policy to new precedent-shattering levels when he takes office in less than 2 weeks. Okay, there's some good expressions and words here. First of all, what does it mean when you ramble? R-A-M-B-L-E. It means that you just talk and talk and talk, but you don't really have a direction, okay? I'm sure you've done this before, maybe your friends or maybe your parents. When you're talking, you're having a conversation with them, and someone's just talking and talking, and the conversation just goes like this, right? It goes all over the place. There's no goal or end to that conversation. We say they're rambling, okay? So, sometimes when I'm talking to somebody, and maybe I'm just talking and talking, and maybe I'll stop and I'll say, sorry for rambling, or sorry for rambling on, or sorry to ramble, okay? Those all just mean sorry, I'm just talking and I don't really have any goal in my conversation. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so why don't we say together, to ramble. To ramble. And then here, ramble becomes a 形容词. So it says rambling session. So let's say together, rambling. Rambling. Okay, so this was, he was talking to a bunch of 记者, reporters, and they would keep kind of rambling. So the rambling session erased any doubt. Okay, now again, this is a very common expression, to erase any doubt. Now, you know what doubt is, right? I doubt this is going to happen. I don't think this is going to happen. But if you erase, what does erase mean? To wipe out, right? In school, we all have erasers to erase our pencil writing. Okay, but we call that an eraser, of course. But if you erase any doubt, it means that you remove any doubt. Means there is no doubt. Okay, erased any doubt that Trump plans to take foreign policy. This is the 外交, 政策 to new precedent-shattering levels. Okay, now this is a word we talked about a very long time ago, but precedent, if you set a precedent, it means you do something that people will follow in the future, okay? And if something is unprecedented, we add a UN, unprecedented, it means it's never happened before, okay? So let's say, let's say you're I'm trying to think of something that's unprecedented. Okay, let's say your friend has never invited you to their home before. You've always met them outside. And one day they say, hey, you know what? I want you to come and have dinner with my family at my home. And you're like, what? That's unprecedented. It means that's never happened before. But once you've gone to their home one time, now there is a precedent, meaning that in the future, they can keep inviting you to their home again because they've already done it one time. They have set a precedent. They have created a precedent. It means you've done it the first time, and now, you could probably do it again in the future. Okay, does everybody understand that idea? Okay, so when it says here a new precedent shattering means broken levels. It means that he wants to take foreign policy to a new level that we've never seen before. It's breaking the precedents. The precedent is the way that we've been doing things so far. But then if you shatter or you break that precedent, it means you're doing something that is unprecedented. It's setting a new precedent. Okay, sorry, does that make sense? Does everybody get that, understand that? Any questions about that? Okay. So basically, the key words are unprecedented or precedented, or to set a precedent. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Basically, he'll do things that are unique or radical or revolutionary or different. Okay. Okay. So anyhow, let's read these words again. Let's say these things together. Erased any doubt. Erased any doubt. Precedent. Precedent. Shattering. Shattering. Okay, and let's say that other word too. Unprecedented. Unprecedented. Right. That's a good word actually. We use it quite a bit. Okay. Shatter, of course, means to break into many pieces, right? If you have a glass in your hand, you drop it on the floor, usually it will shatter. And I remember several times in my apartment, I dropped the glass on the floor and I was like, oh no, because there's so many tiny little pieces and you don't want to step on them, right? So then you're sitting there vacuuming and you're looking very closely for even the tiniest piece of glass because it shattered into so many small pieces. Okay, so anyhow, let's read this together and say, yeah, okay. However, the rambling session erased any doubt that Trump plans to take foreign policy to new precedent-shattering levels. One more time, precedent-shattering levels. When he takes office in less than 2 weeks. Okay. Now it says here, Panama has already vowed not to give up the canal, and Denmark says it has no plans to cede control of Greenland. Okay, now cede basically means to give up or to give. I use this word a lot because I always say when I'm talking about Taiwan history, I always say in 1895 or Taiwan was ceded to Japan, okay? Or China ceded Taiwan to Japan. We can use that word cede. It means to give or hand over, okay? So why don't we say together, cede. Cede. Okay, so it says here, of course, the Panama has vowed. Again, this is similar to those other words. Pledge, promise, vowed, okay? Swore not to give up the canal. And Denmark says it has no plans to cede control of Greenland, okay? Okay, so let's read this. Panama has already vowed not to give up the canal. And Denmark says it has no plans to cede control of Greenland. Right, okay. The U.S. did control the Panama Canal until, you know what year? Actually, it was officially, well, no, that's when Jimmy Carter signed an agreement, but it went back to Panama in 1999. It returned to the control of Panama because prior to that, the whole canal, we had the special called the Canal Zone. It was under U.S. control. They used U.S. money. It was U.S. There was U.S. military bases. It's interesting because U.S. still has military bases in Greenland as part of its NATO commitment. Yeah. So, yeah. But I think it's I hear Greenland's actually getting warmer now. Okay. So let's read this. It says, Trump did not mention that the U.S. has not spent 5% of GDP on defense since the 1980s. The current figure is about 3%. Let's keep reading here. However, the rhetoric, let me pull this up here. However, the rhetoric all fits with a far more emboldened stance to say and do almost whatever he wants, given the mandate he believes he received for a second term after winning the popular and electoral votes. There's a lot of big words here, but let's look at this. So first of all, I think that's pretty clear. The U.S. not spent 5% on GDP on defense since the 1980s. The current figure is about 3%. Okay, but it says here, the rhetoric. Now, this is a very interesting word. I don't know if we've learned this before, but what does this word rhetoric mean? Yeah, I would say a very simple way of saying this is the language, okay? But rhetoric is a way of, is kind of like your speaking style, the way you speak or the words you use. I will say, you don't see this anymore much, but in schools, American high schools, a long time ago, they actually had a class called rhetoric. And it was a class that taught you how to speak, how to, give a speech or speaking, or, how to give a good speech, okay? Yeah, even when I was in high school, as part of our English class, we took a section on rhetoric or speaking, and we had to give speeches, 演讲, and we had to give different kinds of 演讲. Some were I remember one kind of speech we had to give was how do we say, explanatory speech, like a how-to speech, like how to build a treehouse or how to cook, 炒面 or something like that. We gave that, and then we had to give another speech where it was a speech to convince someone of something. Like I had to make an argument, like why we should do this or why you should believe this. And then there was one speech, we call it an impromptu speech, which is very interesting. They give you 5 minutes. They give you a topic, and you have 5 minutes to come up with a speech. No preparation. So you have to quickly think, okay, what am I going to say? And then you get up and you talk. It was fun. I thought it was a good class. It was good training. Impromptu. Yeah. Let me write that for you, actually. This word impromptu means no preparation, sudden, like usually if it's a speech or something where you have to do something with no preparation, like give a speech, like 演讲. So an impromptu speech is just like somebody says, okay, I want you to talk about this. Okay, great. Give me 1 minute. And then you think about it. Okay, what am I going to say? So. Well, figure of speech is really just expression. It's a way of saying something. If I say something that's not literal, maybe I say something that's figurative, I may say that's just a figure of speech. I don't really mean that. It's just an expression, right? Yeah, or I was just thinking of an expression. If someone's going to do a 表演 or performance or concert, and you tell them before they go on the stage, you say, go break a leg, okay? You're like, what? What are you talking about? But if you say, go break a leg, that means, 加油, good luck, okay? I don't know why they say that, but yeah, it means break a leg. So when we say go, yeah, okay. So he said that is, when we say go break a leg, we say that is just a figure of speech. It means that it doesn't mean you should really go break your leg, but it means it's an expression. So if you say something and someone says, what? What do you mean? You say, don't worry about it. That's just a figure of speech. That's just an expression, okay? Yeah. Presentation? Presentation could be anything. I mean, often we could say a speech is a presentation, but there are other presentations, right? I could give you a presentation without speaking, without a speech. I could give you a visual presentation. I could use PowerPoint, PPT, to do a presentation, but I'm not really giving a speech. So a speech is when you're speaking and talking, and a speech is a kind of presentation. So, yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah. So she just used the word presentation because presentation means to present, right? So we give a presentation, like a speech is a spoken presentation, but there are other kinds of presentations out there. Okay, so going back to this, rhetoric is language, the way you speak. Why don't we say together rhetoric? Rhetoric. So we could say he used very strong rhetoric, or he used very, diplomatic rhetoric. It means speech, okay? So why don't we say these words, these together as well? Impromptu. Impromptu speech. Impromptu speech. Go break a leg. Go break a leg. Figure of speech. Figure of speech. And then that word presentation. Presentation. The reason why I was thinking about this is just this morning, I think you've seen, there's Meiguo, they send over every year to Taiwan. They send out these young people. It's called Fulbright program. And they come here and they help at schools in Taiwan. They help English teaching. They're called English teaching assistants. But they're usually like American university students. I don't know. Have you heard? I think some of them come here sometimes. Yeah. So just today, one of my friend's daughters is a Fulbright assistant in Dajia. And she told me she is taking care of one of her other Fulbright colleagues from America. I said, what happened? Oh, she said, she broke her leg. And I was like, what happened? And you know what happened? And it doesn't surprise me. She was walking across the street on a 绿灯, on a 斑马线, and she got hit by a bus. And I told my friend, I said, you have to be very careful because 台中公共巴士很危险, they're always hitting people, right? So yeah, this American teacher was walking across a 斑马线, a crosswalk on a 绿灯, and a bus hit her and broke her leg. So she had a 开刀, and I was like, all the time, what is wrong with the buses here? I don't know what's going on. But anyhow, she literally broke her leg. So yeah. So yeah, it's too bad. But anyhow, if you're about to give a presentation or a speech or a performance or a play or a concert, and someone says, go break a leg, it means 加油, yeah. And I have no idea why they say that. Yeah. I haven't, but yeah, I'm sure other people do. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's bad luck. Yeah. So anyhow, let's keep going. It says here, the rhetoric all fits with a far more emboldened stance. Now, we've used this word before. Stance means your position, right? It could be your physical body position, or it could be your opinion, like what you are promoting, your ideas, okay, your stance. Embolden, okay, I think you know the word bold, right? What does bold mean? Strong. Yeah, forward, okay? So if you are emboldened to do something, what does that mean? It means you have gotten courage or strength to do something, okay? So for example, maybe your friend is very, very shy and very, 害怕 and very害羞 about something, and then you encourage them. You say, no, you're very smart. And because you encourage them, they are emboldened to do something. It means they receive strength and courage to go do something, or power to do something. I guess it could be strength, courage, power to go do something. So you could say he was emboldened by his success to go and do something else, okay? So let's say this word together. Bold. Bold. Emboldened. Emboldened. Right. So if somebody says something to you and you're like, wow, okay, that's very bold for you to say that, right? That means it's what you're saying is very strong and powerful and maybe a little bit surprising, right? So we often use that word bold. People can dress in a very bold way too. If someone's wearing very bright colors and they're very strong colors, and you're like, wow, their appearance looks very bold, right? It expresses power. Okay. Okay. So this language Donald Trump is using fits with a more bold stance or position to say and do almost whatever he wants, given, or we could say because of, the mandate he believes he received. Okay, for a second term. Now, this is a word we've never used before, and I'll explain this to you. A mandate is when somebody gives you the authority or the right to do something, but usually it's because you have their support. Okay? So you can say the president has a strong mandate from the people to do this, right? Let's say, for example, a president says, I want to change this policy. I want to, 做一个, 改革 or whatever, reform. To do that, he needs the support of the people. But if he, let's say, like Donald Trump, he wins the election and he has lots of people voting for him, then he has received a mandate from the people. It means he has received a authority or support from the people to go do something like that. So this word mandate is like an idea of being given authority. Does everybody understand that? Not compulsory. Compulsory means you have to do something, but mandate means power, support of something. Okay? So why don't we say together, mandate. Mandate. Right, and usually someone is given a mandate to do something. It means they've been given the authority. So he believes, Donald Trump thinks that he has been given the mandate for a second term because he won the popular and the electoral votes. Okay, and I think we've talked about this before. America has an interesting system for electoral votes, right? Remember this? Every state has so many votes. We call it electoral college. But the popular vote is just the number of votes from everybody. And we just count the number of votes. So Donald Trump won the electoral college or the electoral vote, but he also won the popular vote. Because it's actually it's possible to win the electoral vote, but not win the popular vote. Okay, that's actually possible. And it's happened more than once. Okay. So anyhow, there's a lot of things here, but I hope you kind of understand what this means. It means that his language is very bold, okay? His language reflects or expresses this very bold position or ideas that he has because he thinks that because he won the election very strongly, he had a strong victory, he has been given the support or the mandate to do what he wants to do. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So there's a lot of interesting words here and expressions, but hopefully you can remember some of these things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 If you win an election but you barely win the election, like your victory is very narrow, then you might argue that you do not really have a very strong mandate because half the people voted against you, right? But if you win the election by a strong margin, like a bigger margin, then you might say, I have a stronger mandate from everyone because my victory was stronger, it was bigger. That's the idea here. Okay? So let's read this together. However, the rhetoric all fits. Let's say it again. Rhetoric all fits with a far more emboldened stance. Emboldened stance. To say and do almost whatever he wants. Given the mandate he believes he received for a second term after winning the popular and electoral votes. Okay, so this is it says, if Trump's foreign policy approach in his first term flirted with trolling the rest of the world, he is taking it to a new level this time around, well before his second term even starts. Okay, so it says, if Trump's foreign policy approach means your way of doing things, okay, your strategy, your method, okay, your approach. If his foreign policy approach in his first term flirted with trolling the rest of the world. Now, this is a very good word. What does flirt normally mean? Yeah. Flirt. If you flirt with somebody, it means you say something to kind of get them interested in you, right? I mean, this is very common. Men and women flirt with each other every day, right? You say something and they smile at you, and you smile at them, and we say they are flirting with you, or but we can flirt with other things. For example, if someone likes they behave in a way that is very risky, 很有风险, right? We say they are flirting with danger, okay? Because something is dangerous and you're doing something that could cause you trouble, but you're flirting with it, right? You're kind of playing with it, okay? So you can say he was flirting with danger, okay? So that's another way of using this word here. But here, so it says in his first term, he flirted with. It means he did a little bit, but not too much. He just kind of tried a little bit. Flirting with trolling the rest of the world. Now, this word trolling is a very interesting word, and it's a word we use a lot today, especially online. Okay, does anyone know what a troll is originally? It's a how do I say? It's a legendary creature. How do I put this? Have you ever watched the movie Lord of the Rings? Okay, in Lord of the Rings, there are these trolls. They're these huge creatures. They look like people, but they're huge, and they're kind of not very smart, like trees. Yeah. But they're huge and they're very strong. Of course, they're not real, right? There's not a real troll. Yeah, but it's from fantasy. It's from stories. People write about dwarves and elves and trolls. I hope you know what I'm talking about. But anyhow, today we use this word troll is when you say something to somebody to get a reaction out of them. Often you 乱讲话 or write something and then you to just get a reaction from them. And we use this a lot online. Have you ever seen on an article, when you read an article, at the bottom of the article, people can leave comments about the article? And sometimes people are commenting, then somebody will come on there and they'll just say a lot of crazy stuff. And what happens? Everyone else gets really angry and starts, and we call that kind of person a troll, okay? Or we say as a 动词, we say they are trolling you. So, if you write something and then somebody comes to you and says, oh yeah, you're just stupid, or I think that's dumb, or I disagree with you, I think we should do this, and they say something kind of crazy, and then you get angry, we say that's trolling, okay? Does everybody understand that? It's very common today online, 网路上, or for messaging. People will troll, and they will do it usually anonymously. Often they won't leave their real name. They'll just say something and people get all upset about it. So it says here, he flirted with trolling the rest of the world. So I think when they use the word trolling, again, this idea is that he says these things, but he might not really mean them. He's really getting a reaction from the rest of the world, okay? He is taking it to a new level this time around, and well before his second term even starts. Okay. Now, this is obviously the writer of this article is putting their own opinions into this article, which I don't agree with. But anyhow, that's the way they've written this. Okay. So is there any questions about this? Anything you don't understand yet? Because there's a lot of interesting language and expressions in this article that we have not talked about yet. So if there's any questions, please let me know. Okay, so let's go ahead and read this. If Trump's foreign policy approach in his first term flirted with trolling the rest of the world, he is taking it to a new level this time around. And well before his second term even starts. Okay, I want to say one more thing about this word flirt. This can be used as a 名词. Okay, so if you have a friend who likes to flirt, we can say he or she is a flirt, okay? Or you might tell your friend, don't be such a flirt, okay? I'm sure you all know people who are flirts, right? They like to flirt all the time. Okay, so this word it's a good word. It's a very common word. Why don't we say together, flirt? Flirt. Okay, and remember, it doesn't have to be flirting between a man and a woman. You could flirt with something like danger, okay? So yeah, okay. I noticed that young men love to flirt with danger, right? When I'm outside and I see the way they drive motor scooters, even when I was that age, I did the same thing, right? They often enjoy dangerous behavior. So yeah, okay. So I think, let's see here. There's a lot of big words here. Yeah. That's a good question. You say expansionist versus isolationist. Oh, interventionist. Oh, right. Versus an isolationist. Okay, he just used two very interesting words that you may have heard. Intervention. And we've talked about this word before, right? Now, he's adding the word interventionist. Now, this word intervention comes from the word 动词, to intervene. And we've talked about this word before, okay? But then he used another word, isolationist. That comes from the word isolate, okay? So you remember the word intervene, right? What does intervene mean? To get involved, right? Let's say your friend is having problems at his family and you try to help him. Then you are intervening in his family business, okay? Or his personal business. If another country tries to get involved in Taiwan's business, we say they are intervening in Taiwan's business, okay? It means to get involved. So intervene is a 动词, and then from there we have a 名词, intervention, okay? And then he just used the word interventionist, which means you have that 主义. You like to intervene, or you try to intervene in other places, other countries. So, but the opposite is to isolate, right? You remember what the word isolate means, right? Isolate means to be by yourself or to make yourself alone, right? So, sometimes when you don't feel like doing anything, you want to isolate yourself. You want to be by yourself. Maybe you go off somewhere, or you sit in your room and you isolate yourself. And so from there we have the 名词, isolation. You can say, when she is feeling sad, she likes isolation, or she likes to find isolation, okay? And then from there we have this 主义, or this idea, isolationist, okay? So why don't we say this together? To intervene. To intervene. Intervention. Intervention. Interventionist. Interventionist. To isolate. To isolate. Isolation. Isolation. Isolationist. Isolationist. Right. Right. So he asked a very interesting question. He said, do you think Donald Trump is more of an interventionist or an isolationist? Now, it's funny because before, when you listen to Donald Trump's language, it sounds like he's an isolationist, right? But who knows? Maybe he's more of an interventionist. I don't know. I think traditionally the Republican 共和党 tends to lean towards isolationist. I mean, if you look at, before World War II, 二次大战, or other times, America has gone through these periods where we don't want to get involved. We just say, let's just mind our own business, right? We don't have to bother with other countries. But then, of course, America usually seems to be more interventionist because, it's a big country and, our different things are going on, and we feel like because of our national interests, we have to intervene. So yeah, that's a very interesting question, and it's hard for me to answer that. I really don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see, right? What his real policy is. And I said this before. I think it's very important to see who Donald Trump puts around him, right? Like we know who his not 国防部, but his Secretary of State, 国务院, yeah, Rubio, right? And we know his Secretary of Defense, and we know a lot of his other people. And you know, some of them are more interventionists, and some of them are more isolationists. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. Okay, I'll just end with this paragraph, and then we'll go to a different article. Okay, it says here, no U.S. president has overseen the expansion of U.S. territory since 1947, when then U.S. President Harry Truman oversaw the acquisition of several small Pacific Ocean island chains from Japan in the aftermath of World War II. Okay, so oversee, of course, I think you know the word oversee means to supervise, to oversee. The expansion, of course, expansion means to expand, to make bigger, of U.S. territory since then, of course, means then, at that time, he was U.S. President Harry Truman, oversaw, that's the same word, oversaw, overseen, the acquisition. Now, this comes from what word? To acquire, okay? And what does acquire mean? To get or to buy, okay? To acquire. You can say, I just acquired a new watch, or I acquired a new house, or he acquired a new car, okay? To get, okay? So why don't we say it together? To acquire. To acquire. Acquisition. Acquisition. Okay, so he oversaw the acquisition of several small Pacific Ocean island chains from Japan. I think they're probably talking about like the Mariana Islands, and trying to think what other islands did we acquire. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to go back and check my history. Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, okay. Any questions? Yeah. I don't think most of them were. And it's interesting that now today there is a movement, smaller movement in Hawaii for independence, 独立. And it's for what we say native Hawaiians. They're like 原住民, right? They're the original Hawaiian people, not the people who are, now most people who are there are not native Hawaiian people. But the native Hawaiian people, kind of like Taiwan's 原住民, some of them want independence. They believe that it should be still the kingdom of Hawaii, because Hawaii used to have kings and queens, and then it came under economic interest, United States economic interest, and then eventually it was taken over by the United States. I think it really depends. I think it's like anywhere. I'm sure some of them do, some of them don't. But that's true for anyone in Hawaii, right? So, I mean, I think everyone's treated the same. In fact, Native Hawaiians get certain rights and privileges that other people in Hawaii do not get. A little bit like Taiwan, the Yuanzhumin gets special privileges. Yeah. So it's still controversial. Yeah. Yeah. You say Dole pineapple and who else? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Duli is not an alternative. Yeah. Not an option. Yeah. It's interesting, though. I believe the main business interests in Hawaii at that time, like 100 years ago, roughly 100 years ago, was not pineapple. It was sugarcane. Yeah. So sugarcane was a very, very important industry in Hawaii. And it's very interesting, less than 10 years ago, the last sugarcane factory or farm in Hawaii closed. But if you look at all the people who live in Hawaii today, from what backgrounds they come from, so many of them came to Hawaii because of the sugarcane industry. So the first people to come and work in the sugarcane industry were the Japanese. So they needed people to work, on the farm. So they brought in people from Japan. But once the Japanese started making money and they started to move up, they didn't want to work in the sugarcane farm. So who did they bring next? They brought people from Filipinos, okay, Portuguese, Puraya, Chinese, and they brought them over. So there's these different waves of immigrants that have moved to Hawaii to work in the sugarcane industry. And so it's actually a very interesting history on this development because of the sugarcane industry. But yeah. It's very similar. Indigenous and Aboriginal are quite similar. Indigenous just means, indigenous can be a word that can be used for any local native thing. So I would say that in Taiwan, the government likes to use the word indigenous. Oops, sorry, spelling this wrong. Indigenous is very similar to the word native, okay? But Aborigine is actually, and we usually use the capital A, is a special term also used to describe like 原住民, okay? Indigenous just means native. It's a general word. So for example, you could say, what plants are indigenous to Taiwan? It means those plants or animals did not come from any other place. They were here. They originally were here, okay? So we can use indigenous to describe a plant, an animal, or a person. But Aborigine is a specific term used for people that are like 原住民. And so in Taiwan, traditionally, I've seen this word used, but I know the government likes to use this word a lot too. Often we'll see this used. I don't know if you've seen this word before, but yeah, they're kind of similar. But native is a very general word. It's a very general everyday term, And native can be, native doesn't necessarily mean you're 原住民, okay? For example, I would say that all of you are Taichung natives. Why? Because you grew up in Taichung, you were born in Taichung. Taichung is your city, right? Now, if you were born in Taipei or Kaohsiung, you would say, well, I'm actually a Kaohsiung native, but I moved to Taichung. But native doesn't mean, of course, it doesn't mean you're a 原住民, but it means you're just local, you're from here, okay? So native is a very broad word. But if someone said, I'm indigenous, then that means you're 原住民, okay? You're like Amezu or Paiwanzu or whatever, Taiazu or whatever. Yeah, so that's a different word. And then Aborigine is more like, what I just described. Mm-hmm. No. Aboriginal is a very specific term used for those people groups. Yeah. Okay, so why don't we say these words together? Indigenous. Native. Aborigine. Now we pronounce this letter here, aborigine. This is a G, just sound. Jid-jini. Okay, so let's say it again. Aborigine. Yeah. So those are good words. Yeah. Well, my father is from Pennsylvania. Yeah. Californians. Yeah. No, I've seen that. We say Taijungers. I've seen that term used. It sounds a little bit strange, but that's the best word. Jaiga ER, right? Taijunger, right? So I could say, I would say, yeah, I'm a proud Taijunger. Although I'm not native to Taichung, I would say I'm a native of Hualien, right? I was born in Hualien, so that's where I started. But then when I was in junior high, my family moved to Taichung. So I'm not a Taichung. I mean, I'm almost a Taichung native. I've lived here for so long. But yeah, native is a very flexible word. Yeah. 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 I got, the meal was okay, but from door to door, from leaving my house in Taichung to arriving at the door of my parents' home in Pennsylvania, it takes me about 27 or 28 hours. Okay, so it's a very tiring trip. Yeah, so we fly from Taipei to San Francisco, and then San Francisco, Jiujingshan to Chicago, and then Chicago to Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, which is the Shoudu of Pennsylvania. So that's my trip there. And but yeah, it's quite tiring. Yeah. But it's okay. I don't mind. The food on the airplane is, so-so. So yeah. But yeah. And in America, 国内航线, they don't give you food. Even if the flight is like 5 hours, they don't give you food. They give you snack, like peanuts or something, and a drink, but they don't give you food. So I learned if I'm hungry, I should bring my own food on local flights. But if you fly internationally, like Taipei to San Francisco, they feed you 3 times. So, and it's very interesting too, because going from Taipei to San Francisco, the flight is only about 10 hours. But going from San Francisco back to Taipei, it's 13 hours because of we say jet stream. The air, the air is moving in a certain direction. So yeah, 13 hours, long time. But I watched lots of movies. So yeah. Yeah. Okay, so going back to this, it says Harry Truman oversaw the acquisition of several small island chains from Japan in the aftermath. And what does this word aftermath mean? We've talked about this. Aftermath means what happens after, right? So the aftermath of World War II is everything that happened after World War II, usually immediately after World War II. Let's say we have a big typhoon, and we can say in the aftermath of the typhoon, there was no water, or we did not have any electricity. It means what happened right after something. So we say the aftermath. It's almost like saying the 影响 or the effect of something, what happened because of that. Okay? So why don't we say together aftermath? Aftermath. Okay. Okay, let's read this together and then we'll go to a different story. No U.S. president has overseen the expansion of U.S. territory since 1947, when then U.S. President Harry Truman oversaw the acquisition of several small Pacific Ocean island chains from Japan in the aftermath of World War II. Right. Okay. Yeah, I know that, Guam already belonged to America before World War II because they got it from the Spanish, right? And yeah, I think it like Mariana Islands, I think is one of those chains that we got. Yeah, it's like a special arrangement. Yeah, kind of interesting. Okay, whoops. Let's go on to a different article. But are there any questions before we go on? Anything? Okay. Okay, I thought this was a very funny article. when I saw this headline, I thought, okay, I have to read this because it's kind of weird. This is a lighter article. It says, "Do not eat your Christmas tree." Belgian agency. So I've never heard of anyone eating their Christmas tree, but I guess they feel like they have to warn people not to eat their Christmas tree. Okay. Now, when we say Belgian, we're talking about what country? Belize, right? Which is Belgium. I'm sure we'll see that in the article. Okay. So when I saw this, I was very curious. I was like, why are they warning people? So it says here, some things might go without saying, but just in case, Belgium's food agency issued a public health warning as the festive season wrapped up on Tuesday. Do not eat your Christmas tree. Okay, so this expression, when we say some things go without saying, what does that mean? That's an expression. What does that mean? There's no argument about it, but it also means some things we don't have to say. They're obvious. It means some things are obvious, So, if we say don't eat your Christmas tree, well, we're like, of course you don't eat your Christmas tree. So we could say, if I say that goes without saying, okay? So the expression says that goes, G-O-E-S, without saying. So if I'm talking to you and I say, I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about buying a new car, but that goes without saying that I should make sure that I have enough money before I buy a new car. We could say it goes without saying, or that goes without saying. It means it's obvious. It's like another way of saying, of course. Okay. So we could say, of course, but just in case, or it's obvious, but just in case. Okay. Yeah, no, there's no doubt, but just in case, in case you forgot. Okay. So it says they issued a public health warning. Of course, governments, I know Taiwan, often they have public health warnings as the festive season. And we've talked about this word festive. Festive means what? Relating to festivals or celebrations, right? Right now, it's the festive season in Taiwan, right? We had Christmas, then we have New Year's, then we have Longni Guonian coming up. It's the festive season, okay? As a festive season wrapped up. And what does wrapped up mean? Finished, closed, ended, right? You can say he wrapped up his vacation yesterday. It means he finished, he closed, he ended, okay? So wrapped up on Tuesday. Okay, so let's read this together. Some things might go without saying, but just in case, Belgium's food agency issued a public health warning as the festive season wrapped up. Let's say it again. Festive season wrapped up on Tuesday. Do not eat your Christmas tree. Okay, and I'll read this. It says, the unusual message came after the city of Ghent, an environmentalist stronghold in the country's East Flanders region, raised eyebrows by posting tips for recycling the conifers on the dinner table. Okay, so the city, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly, Ghent. Yeah, I'm probably saying that wrong. But it's a well-known city in Belgium, okay? So the unusual message came after the city of Ghent, an environmentalist stronghold. Now, you know what environmentalist means, right? It means what? If you are an environmentalist, what does that mean? What do you want to do? Yeah, you want to 环保. You want to protect the environment. So I'm sure that many of you are environmentalists. You want to protect the environment, right? So environmentalist stronghold. And when we say a stronghold, what does that mean? It means a place where this is very powerful or very strong. Now, a stronghold in the old days, if you go back, 200 years ago, we could say it is a fortress, right? Or a fort, like a 古堡 or a castle, right? A fort. It's a place where, like a castle or a fort where the army or military would be there, and it would be a very strong place and nobody could take it over. But today, when we say this is a stronghold of something, it means this is a center for this idea. It's where so Ghent, the city, is known for having many environmentalists. This idea, this 主义, is very strong there. So we say that the city is a stronghold for environmentalism, or it is an environmentalist stronghold. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so why don't we say together, stronghold. Stronghold. Environmentalist. Environmentalist. Of course, if we want to turn this word into a 主义, we just take the T and we change it for an M, right? Environmentalism. Okay, why don't we say it together, environmentalism. Environmentalism. Okay, so environmental stronghold in the country's East Flanders region. Now, this is an official区or area of Belgium. Okay, now here's a very funny expression. It says this city raised eyebrows by posting tips. Okay, what does this mean? This is a very good expression. Today so your eyebrows, right? If you raise your eyebrows, often it means you're what? Surprised, right? You're shocked, right? So if you say this raised eyebrows, it means it surprised people or it shocked people, okay? You can say his words raised many eyebrows, If somebody says something, your friend says something that's very kind of weird or strange or shocking or unusual, you might say his words raised eyebrows or raised many eyebrows. People are like, huh? What? What are you saying? Okay. So does everybody understand that? Okay. So why don't we say together, raised eyebrows. Raised eyebrows. Okay. How? It says by posting tips. Okay. This is like advice, right? Tips. When you give someone a tip, it means you give them advice. Posting tips for recycling, 回收, the conifers. Now, conifer is a kind of tree, like a Christmas tree. We call that okay. So it's a whole kind of tree. Like if you go up in the mountains here, you see many conifers. On the dinner table. So you're like recycling your Christmas tree on the dinner table. What are they talking about? So why don't we say this together? Recycling. Recycling. Conifers. Conifers. Right. Of course, we know Taiwan likes to recycle many things, right? Recycling is quite important in Taiwan because it's a small island and they need to do that. It is. Specifically, gin is flavored with, there's a juniper berry. It's a kind of berry, juniper. But I don't know if there's conifer in there or not. But juniper, I know there's definitely this juniper berry. Yeah. So, okay, let's read this. The unusual message came after the city of Ghent, an environmentalist stronghold. One more time. Environmentalist stronghold in the country's East Flanders region. Let's say it one more time. East Flanders region. Raised eyebrows by posting tips for recycling the conifers on the dinner table. Okay. It says here, pointing with enthusiasm to examples from Scandinavia, the town website suggested needles could be stripped, blanched, and dried for use in making flavored butter for example. Okay, so it says here, you know what enthusiasm is, right? We say he is very enthusiastic. What does that mean? Yeah, 热心, very excited, very happy to do something. So enthusiasm is a 名词 and enthusiastic, okay? If we say enthusiastic, T-I-C, enthusiastic means I feel that way. It's a 形容词, okay? So why don't we say this word, enthusiasm? Enthusiasm. Okay, so we can say he has, or I have enthusiasm for this project, okay? And then 形容词, enthusiastic. Enthusiastic. Okay, so they were pointing with enthusiasm to examples from Scandinavia. So they were enthusiastically promoting some examples of recycling Christmas trees from Scandinavia. Where is Scandinavia? Yeah, it's actually three countries. What three countries? Okay, actually, Finland is technically not part of Scandinavia. So there is another word. When you say 北欧, we say Nordic. Nordic countries. So Nordic countries would include Finland. But for some reason, Finland is not included in Scandinavia. Scandinavia is just Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. Okay, so why don't we say together Scandinavia? Scandinavia. And then that word Nordic. Nordic countries. Okay, so it says here the town website suggested needles could be stripped. Now, you might think needle, what is a needle normally? Like what is that? 针, right? Yeah. So, if you look at this kind of tree, they don't have leaves. They have needles, right? Many needles. We call those needles. And so they say the needles could be stripped, taken out, okay, blanched. Now, this is a word, this is more of a cooking word. Yeah, I don't know this word very well, but yeah, I think you're correct. You heat it in the water. I think you found, say, 川汤. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a cook. Yeah, so so we call that blanching and then drying it, okay, for use in making flavored butter, 奶油, right? So the butter would have a pine tree flavor, okay? For instance. Now, when we say for instance, what does this mean? We can say for example. You can say for instance means for example, okay? This is just another way of saying that. Okay, so anyhow, any questions? Let's read this then. Pointing with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm to examples from Scandinavia. One more time, Scandinavia. The town website suggested needles could be stripped. Stripped, blanched and dried for use in making flavored butter. For instance. I want to say, I often get confused. In Chinese, we say butter, but 奶油 is butter, but it's also cream, isn't it? I think it's the same word, but cream is different from butter. Yeah, liquid. But the Chinese word is both 奶油, isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it, right? I'm correct, right? For butter or cream, it's both Chinese is the same, right? Okay, right. So when someone says 奶油, I'm always like, which 奶油 are you talking about? Yeah. So anyhow, butter is the solid one. Yeah. Okay. Asked what they thought of the idea, the reply from the Belgian Federal Agency for the Safety of the Food Chain was a resounding no. Christmas trees are not destined to enter the food chain, it said in a statement. Okay, so somebody asked this Belgian, I think it's their 卫生署 or something, their food safety agency, or government agency, food chain safety. Okay, food chain, of course, we have a food chain, right? So they asked them, what do you think of this idea? Their answer was a resounding no. When we say resounding no or resounding answer, what does that mean? It means a very strong, repeated answer. If someone says, what do you think we should do? And I say, my answer is a resounding no or resounding yes. It means it's absolutely, it's solid, it's very firm, okay? There's no question, okay? So a resounding answer means a very strong answer. It has a very strong sound to it, okay? So why don't we say together, resounding. Resounding. Okay, it has kind of a z sound, resounding. Okay, it says, Christmas trees are not destined to enter the food chain. Okay, now what does this mean if you are destined for something? Yeah, it's like fate, right? So when you say something is destined, okay, we're talking about what's the 名词? The 名词 is your destiny. Which is very similar to fate, okay? Now, you might say, it is my destiny to, I don't know, become the president of Taiwan, okay? Yeah, it is my fate, okay? It means it's something that will happen, or I feel like it's meant to happen, okay? So here it says Christmas trees are not destined to enter the food chain. It means like that's not part of their plan. It's not part of what they should be used for, okay? So why don't we say those words together? Destiny. 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 Fate. 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 Okay. So yeah. And again, I think food chain means just the whole, when you eat beef, right? The food chain is you have a cow, you kill the cow, you take the meat, you send to a restaurant, it becomes a steak, you eat the steak. That's a food chain, right? Okay. So let's read this. Ask what they thought of the idea. The reply from the Belgian federal agency let's say it again, Belgian federal agency for the safety of the food chain was a resounding no. Christmas trees are not destined to enter the food chain. It said in a statement. Okay, let's go on. It says, there is no way to ensure that eating Christmas trees is safe, either for people or animals, it said, citing the likely presence of pesticides on most trees cultivated for the season. Okay, so it means there's no way we can make sure or be sure that eating Christmas trees is safe for anyone. Okay, citing means they refer to the likely presence of pesticides. And what's a pesticide? Okay, kill pests like bugs or chong or whatever, right? You spray, usually they pun something on there. So it's usually du, right? It's poison. So why don't we call it pesticides? Let's say again, pesticides. Pesticides. And does everybody know what a pest is? P-E-S-T? Something that causes harm or trouble for you. Okay? So, like 蚊子 would be a kind of pest, right? Or 蟑螂, or was a pest. But this word gets used in many other ways. For example, if I often say, when you were a child, if you had an older or younger brother or sister, you might think they're a pest. Okay? You say, don't be a pest. Okay? And if you want to use that as a 动词, you can say, pester. Do not pester me. Okay? So children love to pester their parents, right? When they want something. Like if you go to the supermarket, 超级市场, and a child sees some 糖果, and they want their parents, and they say, I want it, buy it, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it, can you buy it, please, 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 please? What are they doing? They're pestering their parents, okay? And so they're becoming a pest. So if your parent says, don't be a pest, that's what it means. Of course, pest here, same idea. Okay, so one more time, let's say pest. To pester. To pester. Okay, it says the likely presence, so it means there's probably pesticides on most trees cultivated for the season. And cultivate, what's a simple word for this? Well, not plant, but grown. Grown. Plant is to put in the ground, but grow. Cultivate is to grow. Okay, so why don't we say together, cultivated. Cultivated. Okay. Okay, so let's read this. There is no way to ensure that eating Christmas trees is safe, either for people or animals. It said, citing the likely presence of pesticides on most trees cultivated for the season. Okay, when we say season, of course, we're talking about Christmas, right? The Christmas season. Okay, now, of course, when we say likely, another word would just simply be probable or probable. It's likely, it's probable that this is going to happen. So it's likely, it's probable that there's pesticide on the trees because they use pesticides a lot. Okay. Let's read one more paragraph. It says, what's more, there is no easy way for consumers to tell if Christmas trees have been treated with flame retardant, and not knowing that could have serious, even fatal consequences, the agency said. What is a consequence? 结果, right? Right, the result, the 结果, the consequence. If you do something, there is a consequence, right? We often say there is a consequence to every action. Everything you do has a consequence, good or bad, okay? So why don't we say together, consequences. Consequences. And what it would be a fatal consequence? What does that mean? It means it could kill you, okay? Fatal means, how do you say in the 形容词? How do you? Yeah, it means it'll kill you. You say, deadly. Yeah, deadly is a good word. Okay, so it says what's more. What's more means in addition, also, there's no easy way for consumers, 消费者, to tell if Christmas trees have been treated with flame retardant. Now, flame means fire, right? Retardant means to stop or slow down. So, there's a special chemical that we can pun onto walls and buildings and wood that will stop it from burning. Like if you have a wood house, the wood is treated with a special chemical that if there's a fire, the wood will not burn easily. It'll stop the wood from burning. Probably, yeah. Flame, obviously if you have wood in your house, you don't want it to catch on fire and burn. So but it's poisonous. Flame retardant is very poisonous. You should not consume it, okay? So if you consumed it, it could have fatal consequences. It could kill you. Okay? So let's read this and we'll be done. What's more, there is no easy way for consumers to tell if Christmas trees have been treated with flame retardant. And not knowing that could have serious, even fatal consequences. Consequences, the agency said. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, but hope you enjoy the good start to the new year, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Yeah, thank you.